Good morning, 6th graders. Today we're going to learn subtracting fractions with integers. It's almost the same thing as adding except for one small step. KCC. Like I told you yesterday, what better way of going over the steps with an example? So, today's example is negative 4/5 minus positive 7/8. Like yesterday, the same thing you're going to do is identify the LCD, that is the least common denominator between the two fractions. So you grab, in this case, 5 and 8, and you look for your new denominators with your multiples. Just like yesterday, 5 times 1, 5, 5 times 2, 10, 5 times 3, 15, and so on. And then you grab 8, 8 times 1, 8, 8 times 2, 16, 8 times 3, 24, and so on. The first one that you see in common between the two lists is going to be your new LCD. In the previous slide, we saw that the LCD for the two fractions is 40. But if we change our denominator, we change our numerator. How are we going to do that? Applying the equivalent fraction procedure. Okay, any number that you multiply to the denominator, you will also have to do it to the numerator. In this case, in the first fraction, I multiply 5 times 8 to give me 40. And that times 8, I will multiply it to the numerator. That gives me 32. And in the second fraction, 8 times what gives me 40 times 5. So if I multiply the denominator times 5, I also have to do it to the numerator. At the end, my new fraction, to say it like that, is negative 32 40 minus 35 over 40. Here is the small difference that I told you in the beginning, KCC. We apply KCC only for subtraction of fractions with integers. What does KCC means? Keep, change. It means that we keep the first fraction the same, we change your minus sign to plus, and we do the opposite in the second fraction. In this case, it's positive, so you're going to change it to negative 35 over 40. After you did the fraction procedure of changing your LCD, finding the equivalent fraction, and applying your KCC, you're going to go to the integer rules. In this case, of the problem that we have, both of them are negative. So you're going to add them up and keep the same sign. If we add negative 32 plus negative 35, your answer is going to be negative 67 over 40. Remember, the denominator does not change. But because that answer is improper, we need to change it to a mixed number. On the right side of your slide, you have how to change an improper fraction into a mixed number. You need to divide just like yesterday. So my answer is going to be negative 1 as a whole, 27 over 40. Let's go to your second example. The numbers are negative 7/8 minus negative 1/2. The first thing you need to do is look for the LCD, the least common denominator, between 8 and 2. Remember, you have to do a list with your multiples. 2 times 1, 2, 2 times 2, 4, 2 times 3, 6, and 2 times 4, 8. And 8 times 1, 8. Remember that your least common denominator is the first number that you have in common between the two lists. From the previous slide, you saw that your LCD changes to 8. After that, we apply the equivalent fraction procedure. What does the equivalent fraction procedure mean? that if you change your denominator, you will have to change your numerator too. Okay, for example, 8 times what gives me 8 times 1. So whatever you multiply to the denominator, you will have to do it to the numerator. In this case, 7 times 1 equals 7. And the second fraction, 2 times what gives me 8 times 4. The same thing. Whatever you multiply to the denominator, you will have to do it to the numerator. So 1 times 4 is 4. Your new fraction would be negative 7/8 minus negative 4/8. After your fractions procedure of LCD and equivalent fraction, you're going to do applying KCC. Keep change. So in the example that we have, negative 7/8 minus negative 4/8 is going to be now, with the KCC, negative 7/8 plus 4/8. After we applied all our fraction procedures, we're going to determine which rule to use. In this case, because the fractions have opposite signs, you're going to subtract and keep the sign of the biggest value. How are we going to determine which value is bigger? With your numerator. You're going to look at your numerator and you're going to see which number is bigger. And that is the sign that you're going to keep. Like I was telling you before, you're going to subtract and keep the sign of the greatest value. So at the end, our answer for our example is negative 3/8. It's time for you to try it. You're going to solve the following subtracting fractions with integers. And the problem is negative 1/6 minus 2/9. You can pause the video so you can solve it. Did you get it correct? Your answer should be negative 7/18. Well guys, goodbye and hope to see you soon.